Sometimes it starts with something small. A message appears on the phone. "We're all meeting on Friday. You should come." The words are friendly, nothing unusual. An invitation like that usually carries a quiet promise. You will not be alone. You will be part of something. Someone thought of you when the plan was made. For many people, that feeling is warm. Being included means safety. It means you exist inside the circle. The circle is where conversations happen, where laughter happens, where people notice if you are missing. But not everyone feels relief when the message appears. Some people read it and feel something else. Not anger, not rejection. Just a quiet pause that stretches for a moment longer than expected. They read the message again. Not because they didn't understand it, just to sit with it for a second. Then they put the phone down. Nothing dramatic happens. No argument, no announcement, no explanation forming in their mind. The room stays quiet. The evening continues the way it was already moving. Outside, people are planning something together. Inside, there is simply a person sitting in the same chair in the same quiet room. They are not offended by the invitation. They are not afraid of the people who will be there. They don't feel excluded. They just don't feel the pull. Somewhere else, tables will be pushed together, chairs will be filled, voices will overlap as everyone speaks at once. Someone will ask where you are. Someone else will shrug and say you were probably busy. That explanation usually satisfies everyone. Being busy makes sense. People understand that. What is harder to understand is something quieter. The possibility that someone simply does not need the circle at all. No anger toward it. No bitterness toward the people inside it. Just the strange absence of a feeling that most people assume is always there. The feeling that you should belong somewhere. For some people, that feeling never arrives. And when it doesn't arrive, the world looks a little different. The phone stays silent on the table. The invitation waits there, unchanged. And the evening continues without it. Carl Jung would not begin by asking why someone refuses the circle. He would begin somewhere quieter. He would ask what happens inside the person when the invitation appears and the pull toward the group never arrives. From Jung's point of view, the important movement is not outside in the group, but inside the psyche. The moment when a person notices that the place where everyone else feels warmth does not create the same feeling in them. For many people, belonging brings relief. Being inside the circle means the world becomes easier to read. People mirror each other. Reactions are shared. Identity becomes something confirmed by others. But Jung spent much of his life observing that the inner world does not always move in the same direction as the crowd. Sometimes the psyche asks for something different. A person may notice a strange calm when they step away from the group. The silence around them does not feel empty. It feels spacious. Thoughts move more slowly. Reactions do not need to arrive immediately. Jung would say that this kind of distance is not always rejection. Sometimes it is protection. The inner self is not always comfortable inside the expectations of a group. When many voices are present, the individual can begin to adjust unconsciously. Small changes appear. A thought is softened, a reaction is delayed. A part of the personality steps back so the moment can stay smooth. Most people do this without noticing, but sometimes the psyche becomes aware of it. And when that awareness appears, a quiet instinct begins to form. The instinct to keep a certain inner space untouched. Jung believed that every person carries parts of themselves that need privacy in order to grow. These parts do not always survive well in environments where attention moves quickly from one person to another. They need silence. They need time. They need a place where the self does not have to perform. For someone like that, the circle can begin to feel crowded even when it is friendly. The pressure is not hostile, but it is still pressure. So the person steps back, not because they hate the group, not because they want to stand above it, but because something inside them is asking for a different kind of space. Jung would recognize this moment as the psyche protecting its own depth. A quiet decision to remain whole, even if that means standing slightly outside the circle. Friedrich Nietzsche would not begin by asking why the person stayed away. He would ask a different question. He would ask why the circle believes everyone should want to belong in the first place. Nietzsche spent much of his life watching how groups create stories about what is normal. These stories feel natural because everyone repeats them, but once you step outside them, they become easier to see. Belonging is one of those stories. The circle tells a quiet promise. If you stay inside it, you will be accepted. You will be understood. You will not have to stand alone. But Nietzsche noticed something else hidden inside that promise. The circle does not only offer warmth, it also asks for agreement. Inside the group, people slowly begin to resemble one another. Opinions move in the same direction. Reactions follow familiar patterns. The difference between individuals becomes softer so the group can stay comfortable. Nietzsche called this the pull of the herd. The herd does not usually force anyone to join. It does not need to. The pressure is softer than that. Approval becomes the reward for staying close. Distance becomes the signal that something is wrong. So when a person quietly steps outside the circle, the group begins to tell a story about it. Maybe the person is distant. Maybe they are arrogant. Maybe they are strange. These explanations protect the circle from a more uncomfortable possibility. The possibility that the person outside the group is not rejecting others at all. They may simply be refusing the story that belonging must always come first. Nietzsche believed that individuals sometimes need distance from the herd in order to hear their own thoughts clearly. When many voices speak at the same time, the individual voice can disappear without anyone noticing. Stepping away from the group changes that balance. The person outside the circle begins to live by a rhythm that does not depend on agreement. Their decisions do not need approval before they feel real. From the inside of the circle, that kind of independence can look unsettling. But Nietzsche would say the disturbance does not come from the person who stepped away. It comes from the quiet realization that the circle may not be the only place where a life can be lived. Erich Fromm would listen to this situation very carefully. He spent much of his life observing how people relate to belonging, and he noticed something that often stays hidden. The desire to belong is not always about love or friendship. Sometimes it is about safety. Fromm believed that freedom can feel heavy when a person carries it alone. When there is no group telling you who you are supposed to be, every decision becomes your own responsibility. Many people feel relief when they enter a circle that quietly answers those questions for them. Inside the group, the path becomes easier to follow. The rules may never be spoken, but they are there. How to behave, what to celebrate, when to appear, when to agree. When everyone follows the same rhythm, the circle feels stable. But Fromm noticed that stability comes with a subtle cost. The group asks each person to remain close enough to the shared pattern. Not too far away, not too different. Most of the time, this request is gentle. It appears as concern, curiosity, or encouragement. Someone invites you again. Someone reminds you that everyone else will be there. The message sounds warm, but behind that warmth, there is also a quiet pull. The circle wants to remain whole. Fromm believed that when someone calmly chooses distance from the group, the reaction that follows often reveals how much comfort the group finds in agreement. The person outside the circle becomes a small disturbance, not because they are hostile, but because they represent another possibility. They show that a person can live without leaning on the approval of the group. For people who feel secure inside the circle, this difference may only feel unusual. But for others, it can feel unsettling because it reminds them that belonging is not the only way to escape uncertainty. Fromm did not see belonging itself as a problem. He believed people naturally seek connection, but he also warned that connection becomes fragile when it depends on conformity. Real connection, he suggested, does not require everyone to move in the same direction. It allows someone to step away without turning them into a stranger. Niccolò Machiavelli would not spend much time asking whether the person outside the circle is right or wrong. That question belongs to morality. Machiavelli watched something else. He watched what happens after a decision is made. When someone quietly chooses not to belong, the change is rarely dramatic. There is no public moment where the circle suddenly closes its doors. Life continues the way it always has, but the position of the person begins to shift. Invitations may still arrive, but they come less often. Conversations move forward without waiting. Decisions are made inside the group before the person outside ever hears about them. Nothing is announced, yet access slowly becomes different. Machiavelli believed that groups protect their structure without always realizing they are doing it. A circle survives because the people inside it continue to reinforce each other's place within it. Someone standing outside that structure becomes harder to place. They are not fully inside the conversation, but they are not an enemy either. They exist somewhere on the edge of the system. From Machiavelli's point of view, that edge has consequences. The person outside the circle loses certain advantages that belonging provides. Information travels through the group first. Opportunities appear where relationships already exist. Influence tends to follow familiarity. The circle rewards those who stay within it. Yet Machiavelli would also notice something else. The person outside the circle is no longer shaped by its expectations. Their position may carry fewer advantages, but it also carries fewer obligations. They are not required to protect the group's image. They are not expected to agree when agreement keeps the peace. Standing outside the circle changes the balance of power in subtle ways. It reduces access to the group, but it also reduces the group's hold over the person. Machiavelli would see this clearly. Every position carries a cost, and every position carries a freedom. The circle offers protection through belonging. The edge offers something quieter. A life that moves without asking the circle for permission.